the top 20 best pop songs this time, of the 2010s. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this. I mean, it's March time now, and obviously I did all the decade lists that I thought were pretty relevant to the 2010s way back in January, and I had so much fun doing them that I was kind of like nostalgic for making more of them. It's stupid. It's like been 2 months since I did those videos, but I was like, I want to do another one. I want to do another decade video. So I thought, let's do this. Now, there's no major rules for this list, but there are a few things I wanted to point out before I got into it, in case people were wondering why exactly I've put certain songs on this list. And the main focus is obviously going to be popular songs from the 2010s, but I did also want to try and focus it on the British side of pop music. Now, most of these songs have been worldwide hits anyway, so it's not like, you know, there's loads of songs you're never gonna have ever heard, but there are a few songs that didn't really make it big in America that you might be not entirely sure of, or you might be curious about, so you should definitely check those ones out. The main reason really is just to differentiate myself from the other people that do these lists, because I never usually do these lists like people like Spectre Impulse, Radical Douche. Todd in the Shadows is obviously one of the biggest ones to ever really do it, because, you know, they've got their own lane, they do this, they're really good at it, and I've never really felt like I could get in that lane and make myself stand out. But I suppose trying to make this a bit more British might give this more of a reason, you know, to stand out from the rest. So before I get into the actual top 20, may as well mention a few honourable mentions, starting with Rolling in the Deep by Adele. I think this is still a pretty great song, really close to making the actual list, to be honest, but I think Adele has a bit of an odd relationship with music fans, because a lot of people find her really boring and dull and just find her approach to, you know, breakup music really plain. But I think you should change your mind on that, since we do now have Lewis Capaldi instead of her in her place. But Rolling in the Deep for me just stands out amongst her other tracks, mostly because of how soul and blues influenced it is. Even if the influences are pretty obvious that she's pulling from, I still think she just shows that she's an absolute powerhouse of a performer here. And she honestly has a lot of great hits from the 2010s, actually. I think you could make the case for a few of her songs being on a list like this. I just would give this one the honourable mention. Another honourable mention that I want to bring up is 21 Pilots with Stressed Out. There aren't a huge amount of 21 Pilots songs that I truly love, but this one, and oh god, Holding On To You, I think is an absolute wonderful track, actually. But yeah, Stressed Out was one of their biggest hits, and I think it remains to be one of their best songs, because I just think the way that Tyler sort of presents that longing for your childhood is really relatable on this track, and it's really strong, and I really like how he writes his lyrics here as well. You know, we all hit adulthood, we all hit those lows in our life where everything just seems to be toppling onto you, the stresses, the annoyances of working and all those things. Sometimes you just need that moment to just think about, God, wow, things were so much easier back in the day. And I think this song is just such a great way of capturing that thought, that mindset that we all go through at some point during maybe even just any day in the week, to be honest. I feel like there's not much else to say about this next one, but Chandelier by Sia, just a great track overall. Vocal performance on this track is ridiculous. Like, she's just hitting notes that no one really can come close to. Genuinely one of the better singers in the 2010s in mainstream music, and maybe even music in general. Like, Sia's got a ridiculously good voice. Like, wow, unreal. The better, in my opinion, of the two Rihanna and Calvin Harris collaborations, This Is What You Came For, which is a song that I hated to begin with, but for some reason it's really crept up on me over time, because I just find it really alluring and just strangely satisfying. I think Rihanna's performance on this track is so sultry and like, ooh. And the fact that the chorus is barely even a chorus when you think about it, like it's just repeating the same word over and over again. Like the word you must have been said 200 times in this track, and yet somehow it really just works. I don't know why it works, but it just does for me. Now for the actual top 20. The top 20 of the decade, in my opinion. Starting with number 20, we have Old Town Road by Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus. Don't know how this song worked in the way it did, but God, it's just such a sing-along track. Like, it's such a sing-along track. It caused such a ruckus in debates of, like, is it a country song? Oh, why did it get taken off the country charts? Maybe it's actually just a hip-hop song. Oh, and it was just really annoying, honestly. It was just so annoying. I hate debates like this. It gets really frustrating and ruins the appeal of the song at hand, because the appeal is really that it just blends both worlds in a way that I think hasn't really been as successful in the past. But at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It just sounds really good. It's produced really well. The singing on the track just works so well. I've never cared about Billy Ray Cyrus in my life, but somehow his performance on here just works extremely well for the track. It honestly feels like a parody for the most part. Like, if these guys were just coming together just to make a parody song, then it wouldn't surprise me if that's actually what they intended to do, but it ended up being so good, so it has to go on the list. At number 19, we have the comeback of Nerd, or N-E-R-D, with the track Lemon, featuring Rihanna. Rihanna, man, on this track, she is killing it. Holy shit, she should have dropped an album by now, because if she was giving us stuff like this, I think she'd actually really shake up the hip-hop game, honestly. She's not like an amazing rapper on this track, but she just has so much swagger. Where is this swagger coming from? I have no idea. And the friggin' beat on this, I mean, of course these guys came together to come through with some really colourful and quirky production once again, because that was always what Pharrell was about, you know, the Neptunes, that type of stuff in the 2000s, and bringing it into the 2010s, the way that they did with this track, I think just really captures everything that Pharrell can do really well on his best day. He also has some mad stinkers, by the way. Like, some of his production in previous years has been awful, but when he's right, and this track's just such a fun track. There's nothing more to call it than fun. At 18, we got the collaboration track that essentially put two artists completely on the map, really. Latch by Sam Smith, Disclosure. Probably no surprise to some of you, as you may already know, that I think Settle is such a fantastic album and made it on my decade list, but the single Latch that came from it is a massive highlight from the album, and honestly it might not even be the best track on the album, but it certainly became the biggest track on the album. Such a great club track. Sam Smith's performance on this track is so damn good. Sam Smith has an excellent voice, and I've been saying for years that there needs to be a full Sam Smith album produced by Disclosure. Why has this not happened already? I've been saying it for God knows how long, and this track is proof of how frigging good these two artists sounds when they come together.
Hello everyone, I'm the Double Agent. I Need a Haircut, and Rather Be by Clean Bandit is one of the best pop songs ever written. I mean, just listen to it. Listen to those strings. Listen to those vocals. I don't know what the lyrics are really about, but they're perfect too. I genuinely don't understand how we as a society let ourselves forget about this song. That is a fucking crime. I demand reparations. $100 each. Pay up.
Hardly breaking new ground at number 16 here with this one, because it's got praised to death for many years now. One of the oldest songs on the list too. Forget You by CeeLo Green. Come on, man. Bringing Motown, that classic soulful Motown sound, to the 2010s and making it sound this good. Jesus Christ, like, what can I say about this song that's not already been said? CeeLo's sassy as hell performance on this track completely sells it too. Jeez, come on, I don't need to say any more words. At number 15 though, we have an artist who's had a bit of a struggle of a decade for me personally, and for many others too, who just generally think his music is incredibly boring, and the potential that he actually has is probably a lot greater than he displays on most of his music. But he just really comes through with a ridiculously good song, and that is Drake, and the track I've picked here is Nice for What. This is just like a summer jam, a freaking summer jam with a really well incorporated Lauryn Hill sample, I must add too. And it's honestly kind of quite an empowering anthem, I suppose, for women, which I guess hasn't really been a part of Drake's. Uh, I don't know. It's not really been part of Drake's image, to be honest. He's always been the guy who's getting broken by women, whereas this track kind of flips that, and he's really just sending a strong message to women out there. And even without all that, honestly, it's just such a great track, and he's actually spitting on this track really well. The sample, again, like I mentioned, is so well incorporated. It's a great track. It's a great track. It's proof he can do way better than he ends up doing on his 1 hour 20-minute albums. He always has to put out a 90 friggin' minute album. 80, 90. So long, so long. Just make all the songs as good as this and I'll be happy. At number 14, we have one of the breeziest pop songs, one of the most casual pop songs of the decade, and that is Zara Larsson's Lush Life. Similarly to Jess Glynn, I will say that she kind of peaked quite early because there weren't really any other songs past this that I really rated that highly, but she killed it on this. It's not really anything deep lyrically, it's honestly just about having a crush on someone, but hey, look, if you can make it sound this good, then just do all your pop songs like this. This is fire.
Taylor Swift has been one of the biggest, most uneven yet compelling artists of the past decade, and it's been nearly impossible to avoid following her ride throughout the 2010s. From clean-cut country singer to gigantic pop superstar, and throughout all the genre shifting, the celebrity feuds, the awards she's gotten, the political statements, and most of all her tumultuous dating life, and how it has been portrayed in her music. She started off as naive and whimsical, treating love as an unreachable fantasy. But as soon as she started having lots of breakups, she put that in her songs. And when she started putting that in her songs way too much, she puts it in her songs way too much on her songs. Yeah, it's been super complicated than that. But lately she has stopped for a while, and it turns out that it's because she's been dating the same guy, low profile actor Joe Alwyn, for about 4 years now. And it really shows in her latest album, Lover, which happens to be her best album, which I decided that is pretty great. And greatest of them all is the title track, Lover. The song Lover is amongst her best singles and one of my favorite songs from her period. It's the kind of song that people are going to feature in their wedding for years. It's the kind of song that spouses will sing to each other at Christmas and St. Valentine's every year. It's the kind of song that signals a happy ever after, you know? It's so pleasant to the ear. You of course can forget about the instrumentals that make it sound so timeless, but not really inhumanly flawless. And I can say the same about Taylor's performance in the song. She doesn't try to hit all the perfect notes. Instead, she tries to focus more on portraying herself as a woman who is enthusiastic and flustered by this guy, singing these beautiful, luscious melodies in a loose way. It makes the song sound more real, and I especially love the little details that make Taylor Swift, like the scars in your hand from the guitars or the dirty little jokes that she's gonna tell. It's just one of those classical songwriter songs that remind me why I love music so much. It's just delightful from beginning to end. I still believe that she's one of the most important artists of the 2010s, and she ended the decade with a banger. Good stuff.
Next, I've got an artist who was pretty huge in the alternative R&B wave of the early 2010s, but quickly transformed into one of the biggest pop artists of the 2010s. And I think his push into that side of his music honestly has been way better than the alternative R&B side, to be honest, and that is The Weeknd here with Starboy. And that's the thing as well, I like what he was doing with House of Balloons and Echoes of Silence. I think they're really good albums, but I just think this dark synth pop aesthetic that he's going for on this track, I mean, he's out here collaborating with friggin' Daft Punk. I think he just completely kills this song completely. I think he's very self-aware and knows how to play a really strong character, and honestly, even this year he's had a huge hit with Blinding Lights, which is definitely more of that pop side of him as well, and once again I think he's putting out great music with that too. So I think this pop Weeknd works so much better than the R&B Weeknd, and just wait for my best pop songs of the 2020s. In 10 years. You'll probably see him again. At number 11, a bit of a one-hit wonder, I must say, but they did have a few other hits, I suppose, too. But this has really been the big hit, honestly. And that is Pompeii by Bastille. What a great track this is. Friggin' talking about the events at Pompeii, like hundreds of years ago. Bruh. Who makes a song like this? Why? I don't care though, it fucking works. It's a great track. I think the are just so bloody anthemic. And I think, yeah, it's such a cool track to get big. Like, it's not the most inventive or creative track in the world to get popular, but I think the fact that a track like this did get popular is pretty cool. It's a great little anthem, and honestly, one that I still think to this day holds up incredibly well. In the top 10 now, and easily my favourite Ariana Grande hit of the 2010s, No Tears Left to Cry. I think this is just everything that she does extremely well in a pop song. Coming from an album I wasn't particularly very big on, and even the album after this as well, a lot of people loved. Still not really understanding what exactly it is people loved about the album, but I think occasionally Ariana Grande can come through with a fantastic vocal performance that is so strong that she can honestly carry the weight of an entire track. And I think No Tears Left to Cry is honestly the perfect example of that. God Is a Woman certainly has much more of a modern sound to it, and I guess it has an empowering message or whatever you want to call it, but it's not as good as this track, I don't think. I really think this is peak Ariana. And shout out to some of her other hits as well, seriously, like the track with The Weeknd is great, the track on this album as well, Breathing, fantastic track too, and Into You, a great song, seriously man. I'll be the first to buy her greatest hits album whenever it comes out in like 15 years or something.
EXO Tour Life is a song that's very of its time. One of the main catalysts of emo rap and one of the first hits to take the darker and more dangerous themes and textures found in trap music and its subtext to the front. Lil Uzi manages to take an elusive yet just about perfect chorus and melodically twisted and stolid, only to reluctantly admit its own true feelings of isolation and detachment in an empty space. Baby, I am not afraid to pause, die. And the more and more the ethereal beat juggles about 5 different melodies, trying to keep them all separated yet lucid, Uzi tries to avoid the darker questions he brings to the table, going further and further into his usual escapism and flexing, only to slowly realize it's not enough. He's created an emotional dystopia. The song ebbs and flows in intensity and it can't seem to find a break. Sing, mumble, yell, rap, it doesn't make a difference. The song is clinical and cyclical because it knows that if it were to truly deal with the problem by looking outside its cracked window, it would collapse if it hasn't already. He sings Push Me to the Edge as if he wasn't already there, probably by his own doing. It's paranoid and destroyed, the sort of dark night that doesn't seem to end, all alongside incredible melodies and one of the most charismatic performers this past decade has given us, showing us the dark side he had implied before but had never actually let us see through. What a wonder, hasn't aged a bit.
At number 8, I've got Katy Perry with Teenage Dream. Shout out to Mike Seatown, man. He approves of this message. Teenage Dream's just always been one of these strong pop tracks that has this blissful feel to it that I just really adore. Like, it's such an adorable track in the way it's produced. I think Kay's whispery vocals on this one are really to die for, actually. She just sounds in her element with this, and really didn't quite keep up with this for the rest of the 2010s. She's been quite a disappointing artist, honestly, creating some really awful tracks over the course of the decade. But this is an absolute gem. This is a gem. This is one of her best tracks, no doubt. At number 7, though, we have a track that's about not getting any sex. It's about not getting any sex. Bruno Mars with Locked Out Heaven. The song topic, honestly, is a bit silly and a bit desperate, I will say. But my God, was he just so good at ripping off the Police. Like, who else ripped off the Police this good? The similarities are so uncanny, but honestly, I liked the period where Bruno Mars stepped out of what he was doing before, because friggin' grenade, Just the Way You Are. I can't stand that shit, but I think when he just broke out into this this artist who was willing to, I guess, show his influences pretty clearly, he definitely became somehow more of a recognizable artist, which is really weird because usually if you show your influences too much, you can drown in them and you're not as filled with much of a personality, but it just didn't really happen with Bruno Mars. Even on his Grammy-winning album, I still think the album itself is really good. Like, some of the tracks on there are very chic, and he's pretty much just rich bragging the most for the most part. But honestly, I think he pulls off so much of that sound really well, and I think Locked Out Heaven is actually just the best of what he's ever given us.
Hello everybody, it's Tommy from The Wonky Angle. So the song I'm highlighting is Lean On by Major Lazer, DJ Snake, and Heyyyy, or I don't know how you pronounce the latter, but whatever, that's what I'm going with. When I think about this song now, I think this was an EDM classic, and I imagine that would have thrown off 2015 me. I recall when long ago this first got big and I immediately distrusted it thanks to my then strong distaste for Diplo, either through his stuff with Skrillex and Jack U, or just the mere existence of Bubble Butt. You now remember that song existed, you're welcome. But yeah, those days feel like ages ago now. I mean, Major Lazer probably isn't gonna have another hit in the same way by this point. DJ Snake is also pretty much gone, and he was just a massive disappointment in general. And Heyyyy, she never really bothered the US mainstream again after this, besides a crappy clone of this track with Justin Bieber. I mean, Lean On is a track that only could have happened in the 2010s, and none of the artists who made it were still a thing anymore by the end of the decade. Though, the track itself doesn't feel like a product of its time nearly as much. It feels more like this kind of thing that's always been there, like it's transcended the trends and people who created it and stands alone as its own thing. In 20 years, nobody's gonna care about the crappy EDM that's come out of people like David Guetta or Marshmello, but I have a feeling people are still gonna remember Lean On. That's got a legacy. And you can tell because even the people who aren't interested in EDM like this one, it feels like it's got a universal appeal that carried well into audiences that wouldn't otherwise care. It's held up so well where most of its scene hasn't. Kids who grew up in the 2010s are gonna play Lean On to their kids when they get to be in their 40s. Lean On is gonna be here forever, and I am perfectly okay with that.
She's already on the list, but you know what? She's going to be on the list again. That's right, she's on the list twice. Taylor Swift at number 5 with Style. You know what? This is a weird song because I feel like it's the one track that most people who aren't really that big on her music to begin with will just agree on that it's a genuinely great pop track. I feel like it really did win over so many people. I remember in 2014 people were like, I didn't like Taylor Swift before, but she's actually put out one of the best pop songs of the year. And for me, I think her synth pop heavy track deserves to be considered one of the best tracks of the entire decade. Just such a great track here. I think, again, it really shows that, you know, the love side of her writing can honestly be quite genuine. And honestly, just quite, I don't know the word, maybe wholesome? There's a wholesomeness to the way she writes sometimes. She's got that Carly Rae Jepsen effect for me, where like sometimes she just has that like hopeless romanticism in her music that just shines out so much that it's so hard to ignore and so hard not to appreciate. And I think Style is one of the best examples of that.
I don't think enough people realize how rare moments like Be the One are for artists that are just starting off. There are so many young pop artists who catch lightning in a bottle but can't optimize it, who get a flash of brilliance and then don't have the marketing or promotion or pieces in place or network to get it to a wider audience. And that's even before we even talk about the follow-up. But the reason I want to highlight Be the One by Dua Lipa isn't just because it's a terrific song with all the breezy swells of guitar playing off the grainy snaps and Dua Lipa's beautifully layered vocals that can sound so huge while still capturing some of that human edge and vivacious but earnest charisma, along with a more developed bass line that I really think is underserved, but because pop moments like this rarely catch and herald so much more to come. It's the perfect opening moment to introduce an act like Dua Lipa, who is about as pure and straightforward of a pop star as we've gotten in recent years. A great song that foreshadows, but not overshadows, her deep cuts or her worldwide breakthrough. And it was a slow build here too. The song was released in late 2015. I covered it in early 2016 on Billboard Breakdown, and it wouldn't be until 2017 where she released her full-length debut. And arguably, she wouldn't become a presence in the mainstream until 2018 in New Rules, which is, incidentally, where that year I saw her live, and she's every bit as good there as she was on the album. And yet, what I love most about Be The One is how consistently straightforward it is. It shows there is a place in refinement and focus in a great pop song, that you can do the basics and do them well in the same sort of way that I absolutely love Show Me Love by Robin. Now this absolutely excellent tune, I'm still pleased to see it remain in the conversation to this day, because really, it deserves to.
The top three now with what I think is the best dance anthem of the decade. An anthem, a dance anthem for the ages. A dance anthem to make you go da 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 da. I don't know where this guy went, but he dropped such a great track, a remix track, may I add, with this girl, and that was it. We never heard from the guy ever again. But this was originally a song from like the 2000s, a pretty soul-heavy track that he managed to just turn into an absolute tune. Like, there's nothing to describe this other than an absolute tune. I'm just ready to jump every time I hear it. Like, there is nothing else to really say about this song other than the fact that, yeah, I'm up jumping the shit out of jumping whenever this is on. Unless there's a better dance track from the 2010s than this, then please let me know, but I think you will struggle to convince me. I think this is the peak of dance pop music in the 2010s. And at number 2, another artist who has made their way onto this list twice, we have The Weeknd again with the fantastic Can't Feel My Face. Yeah, I know it's pretty much about drugs, I think it's about drugs. I think it's about doing the coke. It's about doing the coke. Look, I'm not advocating for that. But The Weeknd made it sound like it was a love song. And that's pretty clever. But not only that, the friggin' Michael Jackson influence on this track just rings for like miles. Like, it is just such an MJ inspired song, but honestly I think it might be up there with even some of MJ's best songs, honestly, which might get a lot of people angry for me saying that, but I genuinely believe it. I was on this track so quickly when it came out. Like, I was playing this constantly. I was addicted to this shit, and even after playing it as many times as I have at this point, because I've played it so much, I don't think I'll ever get bored of it. Like, the friggin' chorus is just so fantastic. Beat on this track is just, oof, so bloody good. I don't know what they did with this production, but it just has, it just has so much going for it. I would say Starboy is slightly more subdued and a little subtle, but I think this track takes a rhythm and groove, particularly groove, to a new level, and just gives it this modern dance floor anthem. Honestly, like, it does have that 80s twang to it, but so much pop music these days seems to. I think a lot of the tracks on this list actually have that 80s atmosphere to it in some kind of way. Maybe we were just a little bit too nostalgic for that era, but hey, it managed to work. Or a different perspective I like to look at it from is that maybe we've mastered what we were trying to do in the 80s now that technology's advanced so much. So yeah, sure, some things sound like they're from the 80s, but it might just be because we've managed to find a way to make tracks have that flair that the 80s had, but bringing it to a modern context and giving it a bit more of an updated firepower. And I feel like that's what The Weeknd tends to do best on his best tracks, and this is the perfect example of it. And now we're at my number one pop song of the decade. I feel like this will be many people's number ones. I don't know if this is a very original number one to have, and honestly, I don't really think it matters. I think it's like the equivalent to having To Pimp a Butterfly as your number one album of the decade, or maybe My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, you know, maybe Blonde. Like, I think this is the pop song equivalent to that. Perhaps I'm wrong, and maybe this in fact will not be anyone else's number one, but it is for me, and it surprisingly ended up being a duet between two artists who probably deserved better and aren't really on the forefronts of anyone's minds at all anymore. Well, apart from one person, I mean, Rick the Lie, come on man, he loves Kimbra. Kimbra is on the forefront of that man's mind every minute of every day. It's of course my number one, somebody that I used to know, Goche Kimbra. Why was this so big? Who was listening to this? I mean, I fucking was, because it's great. But like, songs like this never get big. Why did this get big? I think it was 2011 or 2012 when this got really huge. One of those 2 years anyway. But that's not really the point, because the point is that when it did get huge, I was volunteering at a charity shop every weekend, and this was playing all the time. This was on all the goddamn time. Like, I was just like, how? How is this the biggest pop song right now? This just does not scream to me as that at all. Bearing in mind my memory is telling me that One Direction were popping off around the same time that this was huge, because I remember hearing them a lot when I was in that shop. Jason Derulo, those kinds of artists. I'm pretty sure The Wanted as well. Hey, glad you came by The Wanted. Shout out to that song, man. That's a banging tune. But yeah, like, there were probably others as well that I could think of if I thought about it harder and remembered some songs for some reason that were playing when I was working there. But like, none of them would match this track. It's just an anomaly. It's an absolute anomaly, and it's so good. The friggin' passion that Goche sings with is to die for, man. This guy has an unbelievable amount of stage presence. Like, I love the way he sings. He just oozes so much power in this song. Like, he is delivering every word like it's his last word. Like, he is not willing to friggin' let this relationship go. You can just feel like he doesn't want it to end. He doesn't want it to be this way, but it is. And then Kimbra comes in, and she's fucking great anyway, because she just has really good albums generally across her career, and she sells the other person's role so well. And then they sing together on the chorus. They sound great. What a good song. What a song. They basically took the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star melody on this track. That's what it sounds like, and it's so good. Wow. What a song. My number one song of the decade. I don't get it. I don't know why it's so big, but it's here, and it's fucking immense. What a song. So yeah, that's my list. Thank you for watching my list. Hopefully you enjoyed what I had to say. Hopefully you enjoyed the little cameo appearances throughout the video as well. I did want to get more, but I couldn't quite get as many as I wanted to, but I was pretty happy with the ones I did end up getting. So again, I hope you really liked their inclusions to this video, and thank you to you guys as well for appearing in the video. I appreciate it a lot. Appreciate you for watching. Thank you again. Tell me your best pop songs of the decade. Tell me what I missed off that should be here. Maybe I've actually forgotten a few. I don't think I have. I really looked through all the lists of every year, and I didn't see any ones that stood out to me in the ways that these 20 did, as well as those extra honourable mentions too. So I hope you enjoyed what I had to say here. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Subscribe, please, and goodbye.